experience of the skyline, there's a big difference between this and this. And the other way to phrase this question, it's very interesting when we talk about view corridors and protecting views, we don't talk about the inverse. And the inverse is this. How much of the view are we willing to save? And you can do this with every single diagram. And this is what we're willing to save in this view from here. Other point I wanted to make is here, if you look at the skyline, you actually see that the mountain silhouette has been breached here, and I don't know if this is a blemish or an enhancement on the skyline. I've got my own opinions on this, but overall, the mountains in terms of the percentage of green that you see here, it's far more than what you saw before. There are, of course, issues of elevator penthouses and other details that don't count at the view, so there's actually a slight breach down here at the bottom of the view corridor. And I think this policy might actually build a wall and leave a couple of little gaps to see mountains, and if the view is too restrictive, if you look at the Charleston view on the web, sometimes the views are modified because they are found to be too restricted, and then it's a piecemeal approach. Now, on the staff report, well, there was this talk about, well, you lose the Queen Elizabeth view or part of that view, but we're going to give you a couple of new view corridors. So overall, the number of view corridors is increasing, so you're going to get better protection overall. I don't know, but that's the way I felt that the reasoning worked. So let's examine that line of reasoning. But I think it's difficult to compare the loss of a view that's protecting a very large part of the downtown versus a couple of introduced views where there isn't any effect yet. And in terms of these new protected views, do they change anything overall in the big game of things, or are they the same? Because you have to remember, when you see something in plan, it reads differently in elevation and section, so you can have a view cone for 1,000 meters above us, and it's not going to affect us. But in plan, it's going to look like there's an impact. So I'm going to look through the choice of these three views. There's this Olympic Village shipyard pier. And for this one, I'll admit there might be some merit in choosing this view because there's no bench, but there's kind of a sculpture there, and you can step out and then enjoy the view. So there could be some merit in protecting this gap here between this development and that development. Okay, so let's move on to the other ones. And the way I found out where these views was, I took my camera, I looked at the viewfinder, so with the tripod and the camera, I was able to match the view and figure out where it is on plan because it wasn't very clearly marked. Then I went to the creekside view, and well, that's a very interesting view because here you can walk along this path, or you can walk towards the water, and again, I found the view by matching the staff report photograph with the viewfinder of my camera and taking some measurements and so on. I actually moved the camera a little bit, I was fine-tuning. And here with this view, you can see there's this berm there, so you're not seeing the water on one side, but you are seeing a little bit of mountains, and then there are all these towers here. But this is, I guess, what they're trying to protect, this silhouette. This is a very wide-angle view, so in terms of your perception, you're not going to see this. You're going to see about 50, 60 degrees in terms of what you concentrate on, and so on. So this is a very wide angle, so you can see the berm and the context. The City Board Park site actually shows that they're recommending not taking this path along the creek side, but to go along Falls Creek, because of course you get the water view and so on. So it might not be the preferred route for people to take, and there might be opportunities for views protection actually here at the water edge looking that way. But that's actually not my main concern. I've got several concerns still here. One of them is, here's the view from the staff report. I copied it out of the snapshot. And it's actually not a single photograph because you can see this little stitch here. There, so you can see a small line here, you can see a small line there. So this was actually stitched together with two photographs. So it's not a true perspective because you have a perspective here and a perspective here, and it's kind of like meshed and melded together. Now that actually might not have that much of an impact because really it's this cone here that's defined and the reference points that are defined over here and over there. But the idea here is, okay, we have some intrusions like these posts and so in the view, but I guess nothing else will intrude here, but then this silhouette is to be protected. And well, the big question I had is, would anyone stop by this light pole to admire this view, or are they just going to keep walking? So is this a significant view to protect, or are there more important views in the city? Now, the other thing I did in Photoshop, this is the winter view, so well, let's go to summer. And let's go back there. So all I did is, in Photoshop, I took texture of some leaves, looked at where the branches are on the trees, and populated the trees. And basically, 2/3 of my view is gone here by the nature of the fact that there are deciduous trees and the vegetation will cover those up. Furthermore, these trees are going to get bigger, so more of the view, basically all of this view, this half of the view is going to be lost until here for maybe 7-8 months of the year, depending on the species of trees and when the leaves come out and when the leaves drop. And I'm just suggesting that I take a good look around and see if there are any tulip trees in Creekside Park, because we all know how big tulip trees can grow. Tulip trees, Liriodendron tulipifera. The Latin name, well, botanical name. And if you see any tulip trees, factor that into your calculations as well. And there are some. Now, the last view is this Olympic Plaza view, because I guess a lot of money was put into making this Olympic Plaza. It's actually very nice at night with the way some of these lights blink and the lighting on the plaza. So it had a lot of money put into it. And the description in the staff report, well, in the staff presentation, I got the impression that maybe this view is from the middle of the square, because that would make sense if some are walking here, not walking along the shore, that path. What are they going to see? Well, if we read the staff report, it actually says viewpoint, center of stage in Olympic Village Plaza. So here's the stage, and it's the center of the stage. So anyone who wants to enjoy the view is going to have to climb 3 steps, go to the center of the stage, and look at that view, because that's what's defined in the staff report. Appendix A, page 3 of 5, and you can see that for yourself. Yeah, there aren't any signs like that. I just put that there for reference. So again, here I had my trusty tripod and viewfinder, and it's about 5'6" or so, 170 foot in height or so. I might have it 5 or 10 centimeters off, but it is indeed longitudinally in the center of the stage. In the other direction, it's kind of weird because the stage curves out, and I don't think this is really a good location to protect. So I'm going to just ask the open question: has any of these viewpoints been selected as a means of setting policy? And this is very technical, so I'm not going to go into that, but just take a good look at the technical descriptions on where the views end and begin, and the heights in Chinatown and the east side, and look at the views, because you might find some interesting conclusions there. And another show of hands before I go into the bigger issues. I'm going to talk about Chinatown. So is Chinatown affected? Anyone think that these height changes and proposals are going to affect Chinatown? Any hands? Okay. I guess we're in agreement that there will be an effect on Chinatown. Well, what is the effect, and what is the situation in Chinatown? Because it's good to know what the situation is on hand. And of course it's affected, and if you look at Chinatown, it's actually a predominantly HA1 and HA1A zoning. There is this M1 for a tiny section. I'm defining this in terms of when I see the banner on the street sign and not the zoning definition. So I'm going to look at the Main Street corridor and also the East Pender. And the zoning, you can actually find all the city's zoning online. It's very well organized. It's pretty easy to go to community service planning and zoning and download this and the map for yourselves. And I'm also going to touch on this historic area height review study, because these two studies are kind of being joined in January the 20th for council debate and perhaps approval. And I'm just going to have a sip of water, but you can look at some of the roles of taller buildings in historic areas.